Okay guys, so we're gonna do just a quick little cue overview. When conducting a piece of music, your most important job is to keep tempo, so the band has a consistent tempo to go off of and we don't drag or speed up. But then you also need to look like the music. So a lot of this piece that you guys are going to be conducting is going to be all up to you as to what you want to do. It's going to show us in the interview, an audition, just stylistically what you can do, your creative side of things. So I'm just going to show you a couple of ways that you can kind of be creative, important cue things for you to know. We're going to talk about crescendos and decrescendos, cues on each beat. We're going to talk about cutoffs, and we're also going to talk about a couple of specific things that you are going to do in the piece you're conducting. A couple of you auditioned last year, I'm sure, and so you are already pros at this. So if you already know what you're doing, you don't have to watch this. This is for beginners who, or if you just want a little recap on how things work. So the first thing we're going to talk about are crescendos and decrescendos. So this is a little bit tricky. It kind of works your brain. It kind of creates independence of hands. Which is a huge thing about being a conductor. So crescendos and decrescendos, the emphasis on this is to just be as smooth as possible. So big fat crescendo is written in the music, and you normally see your drum majors give you a big one of these right here. So the biggest thing you need to focus on when you're doing a crescendo is, one, keeping the pattern steady in your right hand. You always give cues with your left hand. I should start off by saying that, always with your left hand. Sometimes we do emphasis with our right hand, but if you're giving like a pointed cue, it's going to happen with your left hand. Your right hand is going to keep the beat. So you need to make sure that your pattern stays intact and it looks just as good as if both hands were just ticking along. And for crescendos and decrescendos, it's really important that you create a steady flow and that it's not jerky. You're not you're not cutting it up into pieces, but it's very, very smooth and connected. So doing this right here is actually a really good exercise in practicing crescendos and decrescendos. The next step would be to add your hand in. And doing some of these like that. You can pick, say you wanted to do 2 measures of 4 with your right hand. So you beat 2 measures of 4, and you want to have your hand be at the top of the arc by the time you get to the 8th beat, and then circle back around. So that could be a good exercise for you. So you could say 1, 2, 3, 4. So about here you should be halfway. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you switch. So you can see my hand. You switch your wrist over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so your hand is down by the time you get to the 8th beat. That's a good exercise in working on crescendos and decrescendos. You do them all the time in the pieces you conduct. It's an important thing for the band to see because it gives them dynamic cues and it allows the whole band to know like what we should be doing in this section. So cues, big thing. I think that's probably the thing that most of us are worried about for the piece. I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you that a lot of drum majoring is making things up. If it makes sense to you and it looks good, do it. Unless someone else tells you that it looks bad, then don't do it. But for most of drum majoring is just making things up and matching the style of the music and looking like the music. So I'm gonna give you how to cue on each beat and a couple different ways you could do that. Okay, so your most basic cue, probably the easiest one in my opinion, is a cue on 1. So normally we'd give a downbeat with both of our hands, but a cue on 1 just looks like this. You know, just right on the downbeat, just with your right hand. It emphasizes you need to play here. This is a new entrance. So maybe you have a measure of 4 before it. So 1. So you just keep your right hand stationary and your left hand comes up and gives the cue. There's a couple different ways you could do this. This is kind of more like gentle cue, like basic, just here we are, play. You could do it like this. This is kind of a more, this is even gentler. It kind of signifies like, here we are. Maybe it's like a high part, maybe it's a high trumpet line. There is a cue in your piece that you're going to be doing that is a little more like this. This just makes a little more sense. It's like a high trumpet line. If it's a very strong like downbeat moment, You could do it with your fist. Just do whatever you think makes the most sense with the music. But either way, right here. So right hand stays stationary, and your left hand hits the downbeat. A cue on 2, this one's a little more difficult just because it's a little more awkward. So 2, 3, 4. Okay, so give you a measure of 4 beforehand. So my right hand is going to place 2, and then 3, 4. So 2, 3, 4. Another way you could do it is just like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you kind of keep this stationary and kind of swoop in with just your right hand, and then out to 3, 4. It depends on how you want to do it. Either way, it's just emphasizing that second beat. You could also do, this is one of the cases where you could do something with your right hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This isn't your typical like regular cue. I call it like a swoop cue. I usually use it in more lyrical pieces where it makes sense. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It just is a little more flowing and pretty. You could use that in the piece. So then cue on 3. I know I'm moving fast, guys, but a lot of information to pack into a short video. A cue on 3. I think this is an easier one just because your hands are already kind of going out for 3. So I'll demonstrate. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just kind of like a, here I am on 3, come in, new entrance. Is just kind of keep this hand still while this one goes out and gives the cue. So I'll show you again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Oh, wait, that was a cue on 2. Sorry. Disregard. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how, as I'm cueing, I'm looking at who I am cueing. Obviously, there's no one else in my room, but I've gotten used to this idea of having like an imaginary ensemble inside my head. So when you go into your audition and you're doing your piece, kind of map out in your brain where everyone's sitting. So if you're cueing in the trumpets and in your brain, the trumpets are over there, turn to the side and cue over there. If you're cueing the flutes in and you in your brain have put the flutes over here, then cue this direction. Turning a little bit and just kind of showing that you're addressing the ensemble as a whole will get you a lot of credibility. It'll show that you're aware, that you're not just conducting right in front of you, that you are aware of the whole ensemble that will eventually be in front of you. I hope that makes sense. We can talk about it a little more in our Zoom meeting on Tuesday if you have questions about that. But so that's a cue on 3. I'll show you one more time. 3, 4. Also, if you didn't want to swoop it out, you could just kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, like 3, 4, 1. I don't recommend that one. It feels a little more awkward. It is easier to me just to kind of go out, but that is your cue on 3. Cue on 4 is a little bit tricky. If you're cueing on 4, it's usually a pickup into another downbeat. So I would recommend doing it almost like a cue on 1, except you're emphasizing the up instead of the down. I hope that makes sense. If not, I'll clarify with you guys later if you have questions, but I'll kind of show you what I mean. So normally it's like a pickup, like if you have a line, ba ba da da da, something, I just made that up, but it's usually a pickup into a line. So if I was conducting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, ba da 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 da. So instead of really hitting the beat of 4, I'm more emphasizing the up of 4. Because it's usually a pickup into another measure, if that makes sense. And I think that for your audition, I think that's all you'll have to use it for. So let me show you again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. So it kind of looks like a cue on 1, but you're emphasizing more of the up instead of the 1. So that's like your basic cues. You have full reign and freedom to do whatever you want to do. If you feel like it emphasizes the music, then do it. If you feel like it adds style, then do it. And that'll really show us what you're made of creatively and how well you execute it under pressure. So the next thing we're going to talk about, what do I have next? We talked about crescendos and cues. Okay, cutoffs. So a lot of times cutoffs are going to happen usually after like a full measure of da, like a long held note, which I think is what you have in your audition. So depending on the style of the music, we could do what we call like a chop, or we can do like a cradle, and then into your cutoff. You kind of do this a little bit in your pattern, the one circle off and down. It's just kind of bringing your hands in for a minute, prepping for the off, and then going into your circle and cutting off. You can also cut off with just like a big swoop of your arms, but I'm going to teach you both. So for the chop, the chop cut off, what I like to call it, I'll demonstrate that for you right now. So, you know, we might have like a long, held out, crescendo note. So you 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, chop, chop, off, and down usually. That kind of signifies that this is like a strong ending. This might be like a huge part of the show. So chop, chop, off, and I have both of my fists up here like this, kind of pulling like that, and then into the, and down. You might not always go down, but for this example, when you're cutting off, you do want to go down. Another variation of this is if maybe you're in a softer piece, you are you're conducting the ballad or something that is just slower and more legato, and this chop chop just wouldn't really make sense. We can do the same kind of thing. I'll show you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and it's kind of like a cradle, like you either way, left over right, right over left, depending on what you and your drum major buddies decide. It's like a cradle off. You can either do fists. A lot of times we like to do with our fingertips instead to signify more of like a light cutoff instead of like this, strong cutoff. So I'll show you this again. 1, 2, cradle, cradle, off. We like that for more softer pieces. Another way that you can do it is, I showed you earlier, is kind of this like, it's like on 3 kind of. So I'll show you this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So that could be a cutoff on 3. Is if you have a held note that ends on 3, you can do a circle into that. That works for soft pieces, loud pieces. It just depends on how big your circle is and how aggressive you are with your hands. So there is a part in your piece that you're conducting where a 3 cue makes, or a 3 cutoff makes sense. So you're here conducting, it's more legato. So 1, 2, 3 cutoff, and it kind of just signifies the band that we're all off on 3. If you're doing it more strong, if it's like a strong, loud, maybe marcato piece, you can do the same thing. 1, 2. See, it's same thing, just your body language makes it a little different. You can also do a variation of like the swoop and the chop if you want to. Instead of coming up here and cutting off like this, you can come around and cut off with like a downbeat. So I'll show you what that looks like. All of this is for you to just absorb and decide what you like to use, and if you end up being drum major, you can utilize all of this in your show next year. It's just to kind of give you guys a little bit of variety and things to choose from. So I will do the swoop cue, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, chop, chop, and it's the same thing, it's just a different place to end. And it's up to you to decide what fits best for the piece. So one more thing that I'm going to talk to you guys about that you will use in your piece is what I was taught is called a string cue. So it's usually used in like a measure of rest after a big cutoff, which is exactly what you guys are going to use it for. It's one of the only things that I'm like requiring that you do in the piece you're conducting. Conducting? That was really good. Anyways, the piece you're conducting, string cue. So I'll show you what it looks like and then I'll explain. So 1, 2, chop, chop, off. 2, 2, 2. So basically what I did was I went into my regular just cut off like this. I did it with my fingertips, not with my whole hand. And then I'm using it to set the next tempo that we're going into in the piece. So 1, 2, chop, chop, off. 2, 3, 4. So basically I am making like an hourglass shape. So I'm cutting off, I'm coming to the middle, and then I'm coming down, and then into my downbeat. So you will use that right smack in the middle of the piece you're conducting. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you do have questions about it though, do not hesitate to ask me in our Zoom meeting. It can be a little bit confusing, so no worries. I'll show you one more time. So, and then right back to your ictus down here for beat 1. And then the other thing I'm going to teach you is how to conduct triplets. It's my favorite thing of all time. I love conducting triplets. And there is a big triplet in your piece that you're conducting. And I'm just going to teach you how. So obviously, ba, 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 ba. We know how triplets work, right? So basically, you're going to make a triangle. 1, 2, 3. Ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba. And so a big part of this is making sure that you are right across your tabletop. You're not like making it like any kind of like rainbow thing. You're hitting each beat of the triplet with your hand. So bum, 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 da, 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 da. Even more advanced than this, which you probably won't need anytime soon, but if you're getting into it, it might be a good thing to know. If you have double triplets, triplet, triplet. This is really fun. Triplet, triplet, da. So you make your bottom triangle, and then you go into your top triangle, and then into your downbeat. Bum, 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 bum. And it's equally important that the top of your triangle is flat, just like the bottom is. Dum, 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 dum. So I'm not sure if you need that in your piece or not, but it is a good thing to just know for life. Because you have stands, tunes that use it, you have pieces that you might be conducting in the show that will have it, so it's just a good thing to know and hold on to. I think that might be all that I have for you. Don't be afraid to be expressive, add things in. If I didn't talk about it and you want to add it, go for it. And I'm sure that it'll add to it. Just use your judgment. You don't want to overflow the piece with cues. Sometimes less is more. But if well executed, cues can add a ton to your audition. If you're struggling with some of these cues and you're doing your piece, you're like, man, well, I can't. I'm getting off beat when I try to add this cue in. Clean is better than fancy. I'm telling you right now, if you go in there and you do it cleanly and maybe add a couple of important cues and you show the music well with your body language, that will be way more effective if you are adding cues in willy-nilly that don't really belong, if that makes sense. So if you can do a lot and you can execute them well, I say go for it. It'll really show your preparedness and what you're made of. But if not, then go in and conduct it clean. Conduct it clean, get your patterns right, get the big ones in that I'm requiring that you guys have, which we'll talk about on Tuesday. But other than that, just do your thing. All right, that is all I have for now. I'm going to make a video of myself conducting your piece. I'm not going to do everything that I would do in it. I'm just going to do like the bare minimum. So it'll have in it things that I absolutely want you guys to have and execute well. And then the rest will be free reign for you to do whatever you want to do. And yeah, so that's what I got. If you have questions, ask me on Tuesday or shoot me an email or whatever. So I'm so excited to see you guys.